Welcome to Mastering Life's Adventures, an educational podcast about tapping into your true self, the soul, your soul, the substance of your life, to discover what life's ups and downs are really about, and how to have a greater sense of purpose, peace, joy, and fulfillment. I am Dr. Judith Holder, your host, coach, psychologist, fellow seeker who enjoys diving into the connections between spirituality, psychology, wellness, and your everyday life's adventures. All preparing and polishing you like the facets of a magnificent diamond to be your best self. If you're craving more from your life, you are in the right place. Come, let's journey together and transforming what you know into who you really are. Mastering Life's Adventures begins now.
Hi, I'm back with another episode. And as I've been thinking about what I wanted to talk about this time as a simple key that can help your soul growth, what came to my mind was devotion. The key we're going to be talking about today revolves around devotion. What does it mean to truly devote yourself to your soul progress? We don't think about those things. I have some other questions besides that one that came to my mind. For example, as relates to this key of devotion, how can this practice enrich your life? And why is it often so difficult to make devotion a consistent part of our everyday life, integrating it into our life? And most importantly, how can we shift our focus to devote ourselves to what truly matters instead of getting lost in distractions that take us away from our spiritual path? So I want to unpack these questions and explore how devotion affects our soul growth and why we often choose other paths. And it ends up being maybe hindering our soul growth, our soul evolution. My desire is by the end of our time, you'll have some practical tools. Begin devoting yourself to what really matters, which is your soul, the substance of your life. Why we're on planet Earth, evolving and growing, is for soul testing, initiation, mastery, and understanding the fact that we're not about just surface living. We're here to live in a deeper way, in a more fulfilling way, and a way that allows us to have greater peace and harmony and joy and the abundant life. That's what I'm going to talk about today. Let's begin with the meaning of devotion. And when I think about devotion, I'm thinking about this powerful inner commitment. It's like a constant effort towards something greater than the material world. It's deeply personal and spiritual. You've made a commitment to say, I'm going to devote my mind, my heart, all that I do to the glory of God. Having that devotion leads to sanctification. What we put our attention to, we gain more experience around. So when I put it to devotion, which sanctifies our daily activities in service and giving and helping others or helping in the community, being a greater lighthouse of light that we give to others just by our presence sometimes. When we talk about soul progress, we're referring to the shift towards clarity, compassion, and understanding of the true essence of who we are. We feel it. We know it. There's a knowingness within ourselves that we're tied to something greater. Our I am presence, the Atman, the Creator, and we're tied to Jesus and how his path was and how he walked his life that we want to emulate in some ways. So it really does shape our choices that we choose to make on a day-to-day basis in our life. And one of the things I'm giving you attention to around is devotion. And how do we devote to our soul evolution, our soul path? Because what we focus on is what we devote our time and attention to. and it shapes the course of our spiritual path. You might think of devotion as an ongoing relationship with your soul, with your higher self. It's the kind of relationship that doesn't rely on perfection, but on consistent effort, day to day, to nurture your connections to your soul. It's that consistency that sometimes we find that is difficult to maintain because we get distracted. As I said earlier, we get to doing other things, or putting our attention to getting that particular project at work done, or trying to think about what do we need to do next in terms of getting up the corporate ladder or spending time with family. All those things have their appropriate place. But when we take a deeper look into why devotion is so important for the soul's progress, you might be surprised. Think of devotion as a soil in which your spiritual growth takes root. Without it, you're left with distractions and competing desires, and all of which divert your energy and attention away from your higher purpose, your soul purpose. You're here working and playing and engaging in the day-to-day activities for soul advancement. And we don't think of it that way. But ultimately, that's what it boils down to in my eyes. And in my podcast and my episodes talking about the soul and how sometimes it is left behind. We never think about it. We never look at of having a soul. And that soul is, as I mentioned in other episodes, is that spirit spark that exists within us. When we devote ourselves to growth, to understanding, and to compassion, we naturally evolve into the better version of ourselves. Devotion acts as a catalyst for transformation. It's about moving beyond the surface level of distractions and aligning with the soul's deeper calling. And I think we're all looking for that, the deeper calling. Why are we here? I remember when I was really young, about 9 or 8 years old, and even before that, I think, I always want to know, so why am I here? What's the purpose? What am I here to do? And it's only has been through a devotion of looking at this in my life and in my relationship with my parents, who were very devoted spiritually, and looking at it from what I read about and what I study about, is all revolves around spirituality. Not to say I haven't gotten my education as relates to going through school and college and graduate school and having to do the trainings and having to do continuing education around those things. Yes, those are the things that I need to do in my day-to-day life in order to be the best I can in the work that I do as a coach and as a psychologist and as a podcaster and as an author. These are things that have contributed to me being my best self. But at the root of all of that is my devotion to God, my devotion to something higher, the Creator, the Atman, devotion to Jesus and other masters who are teaching us how to be our best self and live our life in a day-to-day way that honors our soul and honors that spirit spark that exists within us. One of the things is to think about devotion as tuning an instrument. When we devote ourselves to spiritual practices, we fine-tune our consciousness to resonate with the vibrations of higher truths. And over time, we develop a deeper understanding of the world and ourselves and how our soul is flowing through all the things that we do, and how to keep attunement to what is the inner prompting that the soul is telling us to be able to do, which is the higher way of living of life. So I just kind of alluded a little bit to guess here's where it gets to get interesting. And that is the power of attention. And where we direct our attention is where our devotion grows. Where we direct our attention is where our devotion grows. Similar to what I said in previous podcasts, back in, episode number 4, for example, and talking about distractions is where we put our attention, is where our experience will be. In other podcasts, I've mentioned this because it is so fundamental to understanding devotion and also understanding some of the simple keys that I've been giving and talking about over the past year and a half that I welcome you to go back and listen to as well. But right now, let's talk about the power of attention a little bit more and dive a little bit deeper into that. And as we're bombarded in the world with so many different distractions from social media and getting these bings to let you know you have another message coming through, and so social media plays a big part of our life now, along with entertainment and endless scrollings that we do through looking at the different TikToks or Instagrams or even in YouTube that attracts our attention. And I guess what we have to think about is that the pull of material desires constantly by means of our attention, these distractions take up space that could be devoted or dedicated to a deeper spiritual practice like meditation, reflection, service to others, reading spiritual material, reading the Bible, reading something inspirational to us that grows us in particular ways. So our attention is only a limited amount of attention we have every day. Where are you putting your attention? What do you find are the things that you gravitate towards? Those are the things you want to look at. Are they taking you on the path closer to God or further away from an understanding of God and your devotion? So the tricky part in these distractions aren't always bad in themselves. So I want to make sure you be aware of that. They're not necessarily bad, such as hobbies and movies and socializing and other activities can be enjoyable and fulfilling. But when they start to consume your time and focus to the 9th degree, you're always involved in it. It's always revolving in things that you're doing. They become substitutes for devotion to your soul's true progress. They become substitutes. Do you want that? You want those as substitutes? Because substitutes are something that are not necessarily fulfilling in the truest sense of the word. In fact, they, occupy space, but then we look for something else. And I'm saying that we want the substance of our life to be around soul progress and spiritual advancement. Because our attention is like a garden. It's like a garden, whatever we choose to nurture and grow. So the question becomes, are we focusing on things that bring us closer to our true selves, our soul self, our Christic nature that exists within us? Or are we devoting ourselves to fleeting pleasures and distractions that don't serve our highest good? What do you think? Here's where the challenge comes in. The unfortunate truth is that many of us fall into patterns of excessive devotion to distractions. Be it hobbies, binge watching of movies, attention to endless social events, parties that are happening, and we want to be involved and we want to not have FOMO, fear of missing out. And so we even indulge in addictions. We're not realizing addictions are taking up space and may become a part of what we're devoted our attention to. Because if we're addicted to something, be it prescription drugs or non-prescription drugs, we're looking at ways to get more and more and more of that. And these types of activities, be it the hobbies and binge watching and movies and addictions or whatever it may be, these activities often take up space that could otherwise be used for meaningful devotion. While hobbies and entertainment in moderation can be enriching, I'm not saying in various types of entertainment can't be enriching, and that's a part of life, and that's the enjoyment of living of life. But they can easily become substitutes, as you heard that word I said before, substitutes for deeper soul nurturing practices. What happens when we spend hours on social media, or when we immerse ourselves in one activity or one hobby, for example, after another, constantly seeking stimulation and distractions, we lose sight of what really matters. We lose sight of what really matters, and it's our soul. And I want you to think about that. It is our soul that really matters. It is our soul that is prompting us, trying to help us, but it can be dormant in ourselves, that we don't have a connection to our soul because we never put our attention to cultivating soul growth, soul advancement. These types of distractions, be it movies or be it social media or be it pleasure reading even, may not harmful on the surface, but they slowly detract from the time and energy we could spend nurturing our spiritual growth. They keep us trapped in cycles of instant gratification rather than sustained growth. And in the long run, these habits can deepen feelings of disconnection, anxiety, and lack of purpose. It's as if some of these distractions, I'm not going to say all of them, but some of these distractions, if it's done over a period of time and it's something we do 24/7, they really do get into disconnecting us because it's creating the space. It is the space by which we find ourselves absorbed in, our thinking absorbed in. All that we're doing is absorbed by these particular types of activities that are counter to what the soul is needing. And the soul is needing our attention. It is needing us to be quiet. It is needing us to be contemplative. It is needing us to reflect on something that we read or something that we found interesting, that we want to be able to explore a little bit deeper, that we know is filling our soul because we get excited about it. We get interested in it. Similar to what we may do with a hobby, which is, again, has its rightful place. But what I am talking about is if you're wanting to develop devotion in our daily life, then we have to put attention to that. So that I would say the real danger is that by pulling ourselves away from being devoted to our higher self, cultivating that higher self, that we place our attention on the temporary, the fleeting, the material, leaving little or no room for what truly brings peace and fulfillment. allowing us to feel a greater substance that exists within us through our soul and through the attention. It's as if you're filling your house either with things that are devotional in nature in our thinking and feeling and actions, or you're filling your house with stuff, just stuff, clutter. Unknowingly, you're cluttering each room of the house with stuff. And we have to be the ones to make the choice of where we want to put our attention. And we want to put our attention, for those who are walking a spiritual path, on things that help to create that sanctification of devotion to spiritual growth, spiritual advancement, spiritual reading, and making it fun and engaging and enlightening. So the good news is that devotion is something that we can begin right now, regardless of how far we may feel from it. It doesn't require perfection. It requires intention. So how do you begin to cultivate devotion to your soul's progress? Let me give you 3 tips, or maybe they're steps. They're simple and can get you started right away. The first step is set your intention. Begin by making a conscious decision to prioritize your spiritual growth. Decide that you will shift your focus away from distractions, such as social media, and dedicate time to practices that nurture your soul. Even if it's just a few minutes a day, the intention matters. I'm not saying you have to be like a monk or go into a monastery and not have any social medias or any contacts. And if you want to do that, you certainly can. But no, I'm saying just in small incremental ways every day, you make an intentional step towards knowing that you're doing this in honor of your inner self, your soul self, your Christic nature of who you are, the wanting to tie into something greater and higher, another level of being, which is taking that high road, which I've talked about in the past, of understanding yourself more and understanding your soul promptings more. But we can't do it if we're always putting our attention to other things and not putting our attention to soul growth. The next thing, step 2, create space for reflection. Devote time each day to quiet your mind and reflect, whether through meditation or through journaling or through prayer or decrees, affirmations. Set aside a moment to connect with your deeper truth. This space allows you to listen to your inner wisdom and receive guidance on the path of making a decision about something, on your path about how you want to be more spiritually focused each and every day. And remember, I talked about that analogy about your house. Your house can be even filled with things that are devotional in nature and how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're behaving, what your conversations are around, or it can be filled with stuff that's accumulating. So we have choices here. So space becomes really important. The soul needs space. It needs space just to be in the quietness of that space, to be able to reflect and give you promptings and help you with your creativity. If, for example, if you want to be more creative, or if you want to be more innovative in certain ways of something that you're working on, create the space. Allow your soul to help to guide and direct you. The last step, which is the third step, act with purpose. Act with purpose. Devotion is expressed through action. Start small, perhaps with one act of kindness each day, or a small personal challenge that encourages growth. And when your actions reflect your intention, devotion becomes something tangible, something that fuels your soul's evolution. So be purposeful. And that might be that you make up in the morning and you think about, what do I want to do this day with my soul in mind? That is related to something that I can grow in, that reflects more of understanding who I really am and my spiritual nature. And again, it doesn't have to be something grand or grandiose. It could be something small that you want to focus your attention around. For example, you may be going into a meeting, either with colleagues or with friends, and you may say, I want to be more patient in that meeting. And so you ask your soul, as you're thinking in the morning time and as you're still in your bed, how can I do that more intentionally? How can I do that on purpose? And it may say to you, well, when you're talking to someone, a colleague or someone that's a friend to you, send them love and gratitude, that you're grateful to be in their presence. You're being more intentional that way. Or ask yourself, when you're in that meeting that you're going to be more purposeful about, so what do I need to say here that could add value? And you're listening. You listen to your soul's promptings to guide you on what that might be. Or when you're in an argument, for example, with a dear one, your spouse or your partner, it's like, stop. Am I being purposeful here? Am I talking with my soul in mind? No, just say, I want to change this conversation. We take a break for a minute, and I just need to listen and ask my inner self. This is what you're doing to yourself. I'm asking my inner self, what do I need to say here that could be of help to this conversation that's turned into an argument? It takes a split second to do that. And that's in that split second, your soul may tell you, look at what the person is sharing with you, and look at one piece of what they're sharing with you that you may agree to, that is accurate, that is true. And you may say, you know what? You said this piece here, and I do agree. I can do that better. But also, I think we need to take a break and come back and talk about what we each can be able to do to be able to make this a fruitful conversation instead of an argument. And in that process, you're trying to be intentional, you're trying to create space, and you're trying to be purposeful in the conversations that you are having, because you want your soul to continue to evolve and grow. And you want to integrate your soul into all your activities in a conscious and intentional way. And as we've been talking about this, about devotion, which I think is so important, and devotion is a quality of dedication. And we want to look at, what do we dedicate our time to? And how we may shift that and really be intentional and purposeful. Devotion isn't about grand sacrifices or rigid rules. It's about a steady, consistent effort to align your actions with your higher purpose. It's about putting your attention on what truly nurtures your soul and not allowing distractions to take the space where your soul should be, so that you can continue to grow and advance and learn many things from your soul and accelerate your spiritual growth. We all have the ability to shift our focus and begin this journey, and to begin walking your spiritual path. And if you're on that spiritual path, getting further along, all it takes is a commitment to choose devotion over distractions. As you go about your day, ask yourself, where is your attention right now? Are you feeding your soul with your actions, feelings, thoughts? Or are you being pulled away by temporary pleasures that leave you feeling empty? And As I said before, devotion is, you can start in small ways, build to greater ways. And before you know it, you're in attunement with your soul. You're in attunement with that joy, that happiness, that gratitude. And you're finding yourself transforming, transfiguring what you were in the past to be in a different space of who you are in the now. Because as we move forward, we're always trying to evolve, grow, advance. As the soul becomes more integrated into who we really are, because that's where our focus is, then what we find is we transform ourselves to being our best self. Something to think about. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining me for this episode on Mastering Life's Adventures, being your best self through soul evolution. If you have enjoyed what you've heard today, I would be delighted if you would share this episode with others, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe to my Mastering Life's Adventures podcast. Look forward to your joining the next episode. Please leave any comments or suggestions you might have below. Bye for now.